Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining tonight's Tuesday Talks webinar. My name is Susan Brown, and I am the Associate Director of Parent and Family Programs. It's a pleasure to be hosting a webinar on tonight's topic, Residential Life, Your Student's Home Away from Home. Tonight, you'll be hearing from Residential Life. Our presenter is Emily O'Brien. She is an Area Coordinator for West Village A. And also joining us are Robert Moss and Jake Wilson. They are two students who work as residence assistants and are active student leaders on our campus. During tonight's talk, you are invited to type questions into the Q&A pod, which is located on the right side of your screen. We will take questions after the presentation, Please keep in mind that if you have a personal question, please refrain from posting personal questions pertaining to your student, but you can always email us them, and we will send the email address at the end. So let's get started. Thank you, Emily, for joining us tonight.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily O'Brien. I'm an area coordinator here at Northeastern University. I've actually worked at Northeastern University since 2011, and during that time, I have overseen a predominantly first-year area for the first 6 years I worked here, and then for the past 2 years, I've worked in an upper-class apartment-style building, as Susan mentioned, West Village A. I actually got my master's degree in college student development and counseling here at Northeastern, so I'm a Husky as well. And tonight I'll be talking to you a little bit about the Residential Life program, living on campus, and some of the experiences your students will be having throughout this academic year and their course while they're here at Northeastern. Tonight we also have two students, as Susan mentioned, Robert and Jake, and they'll be talking a little bit about their experience later in the presentation. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about our team here in Residential Life and how Residential Life supports your student. I'll touch on the living learning community experience. Then I'll share about some upcoming events, some opportunities for how your students can get involved, the role of the parent and family members with our department in Residential Life, and then, as Susan mentioned, we'll leave time at the end to answer some questions. So a little bit about our team here at Northeastern. We have some full-time professional staff members who work in our department. We have resident directors and area coordinators. There's really no difference. Both the residence directors and the area coordinators live on professional staff members, and so they live on campus and have apartments in the residence halls that they oversee. So our office hours are Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And as I mentioned, our apartments as well as our offices are located within each community. So for example, I work in West Village A. My office is located there, and so is my apartment. And I actually live on campus with my husband and my two little girls, a 4-year-old and a 17-month-old. So we also have our assistant directors, 4 of them, as well as 1 associate director and director of Residential Life who make up our leadership team. And they work in our central office located in the Central Housing and Residential Life office in Spear Hall, and they work 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. in Monday through Friday. And as I mentioned, we have some student leaders who work within the residential halls. We have about 242 RAs who work across campus, and those are really the students who are really thriving in the leadership role on campus. They were hired because of how great they are at relating to students, helping in crisis situations. They are our go-to when dealing with the students on campus, and they really help to make a really fulfilling experience here on campus. And we also have hall council members, and those are student leaders elected within the residence hall communities, made up of students who are not RAs but work with Residential Life to put on some really great programs and events that are really memorable for that for the experience living on campus. So a little bit about how Residence Life supports your students. So we try to have a small ratio of RAs to students on each floor. We try to keep the average to 30 residents per RA. Obviously, with Northeastern being such a large community and large campus, some of those ratios might be higher, some of them might be a little lower. But again, we really try to make that home away from home feel. And one of that is having a really small ratio of RAs to student leaders or to student residents. So our RAs serve on an on-call rotation every Sunday through Thursday, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., and then Friday and Saturdays and holidays for 24 hours. And there's always a professional staff member who is on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And for that on-call position, the RAs as well as the professional staff members are there to assist students from anything as small as being locked out of their room to having a little bit more of a need for assistance, whether a conflict or advice, or reaching out to a campus partner that they might not know to reach out to. We always encourage our students to reach out to an RA or their professional staff member to assist, no matter what hour it is. And then, as I mentioned, the RDs and ACs have offices within each community, and there is also an RA office in that community as well. So they hold nightly office hours from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. every night, and that's when residents can stop by to ask questions, visit with the RA staff, borrow board games, vacuums. I always love to see on some nights I can walk by a staff office and see students hanging out with the RAs, and as professional staff members, that's what we love to see, community being built in formal and informal settings. So a little bit about the living learning community experience. So for the first year students here on campus, they all live in what we call living learning communities, or LLC for short. And those are communities that are specific based on academic or thematic interests. So, and within those communities, again, that's just a way to create a smaller community feel within the greater Northeastern community as a whole. And each one of our RAs will be holding individual meetings with each student in their community. We call those Husky Chats. For upper class students, the RA will sit down with the entire apartment twice an academic year. And then for our first year RAs, they have one-on-one conversations multiple times each semester as a way to check in and follow up on what they've learned and to really build that resident and RA connection. And the RAs, as well as the RDs and ACs, plan living learning community-specific events, such as faculty dinner series and informal and formal study sessions. We've seen that there is a huge need to encourage that study space and connections with faculty members, and those are just two examples of some of the successful programs that our staffs have put on to meet those needs of the students. So speaking of some upcoming programs, I wanted to highlight some really exciting events coming up. We are really excited. We had the hockey game that was this past weekend. All throughout October, we have an energy conservation challenge where each residence hall will compete to see who can save the most energy. For our first year students, they're going to be competing in a newly roomie championship, seeing which roommate knows each other the best and how they can compete in different games and obstacle courses. We have a Halloween costume contest, so that's on social media throughout the last week of October. And that's a way to kind of engage residents who might not want to be physically present at a program, but they can participate through social media. At the end of October, we have Pumpkin Palooza, which is put on by RSA at the end of the month to encourage kind of that fall festive mood. And then we have, we're partnering with our improv group on campus called New and Improved to teach an effective communication workshop. A few more, we have Hall Cup, which is a first-year student year-long competition where every single residence hall complex within that first year community will compete in a variety of different challenges ranging from intramural sports to trivia to the costume contest, as I mentioned earlier. And each hall can earn cup points and at the end win an epic trophy. It's just a really good way to kind of build affinity and connections to not only to Northeastern but to the residence hall community specifically. Husky Hunt will be coming up in a few weeks, and that is a huge scavenger hunt that is put on by RSA, and that is one of those events that students of all years are so excited to hear about. It is a 24-hour competition and all over the city of Boston. It's a really exciting event coming up. And then at the end of this semester, we'll be hosting a late night breakfast during finals for our students who have a meal plan where they can come to one of our dining halls, and we open it late at night and have specific snacks to kind of build up that energy during finals, and just as a way to say thank you and good luck for the end of the semester. And now a little bit about how students can get involved in partnering with Residential Life. As I mentioned, there's hall council, and so students can always attend a meeting or volunteer to be a floor representative if they didn't run for one of those formal positions. Some students will come to me and say, Emily, I have this great idea for a program, or why don't we have, I'd love to see a water fountain in the building. And I would say, like, hey, have you gotten involved with hall council, brought your ideas to one of our floor advocates? And that's a really great way for students to be involved with some of our student leaders without maybe having to run for a formal leadership role. But if someone is interested in running for a formal position with Hall Council, we have elections at the beginning of each fall semester. They can also attend an LLC advisory committee meeting. So within our department this year, we're really striving to connect not only with our RAs, who are student leaders and kind of that student voice, but really reach out to our student population and invite students to attend these advisory committee meetings where they can talk about their experience, talk about some ideas that they might have, giving that feedback directly to Residential Life. And if students are interested, we always encourage them to reach out to their RD or area coordinator if they are interested in participating. And for students who have work study, they can apply to be an office assistant to actually work in the RA office, typically during business hours when the RAs might not be physically in the office. It's a way for them to support the RD and AC of that community with either administrative tasks or any specific needs that the RAs might have. But this way the students can get their work study money, but also not really have much of a commute because they can just go downstairs or go to the building over to work for those hours. And a great way to get involved is to apply to be a resident assistant. With applications will be made available at the end of the month for fall 2019 positions. And I always tell students if they're interested in gaining leadership roles, those skills that are going to put them well at the top of the pile during co-op search. Those are lifelong skills and lifelong friendships that they can develop within the RA position. So if they are interested, the applications will be made available shortly. So I'm going to pass it over to Robert Moss to talk a little bit about his experience and with the various roles he's had here at Northeastern.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much, Emily. My name is Robert Moss, and I am a second-year politics, philosophy, and economics student. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia, and this year I am, in addition to being a second-year student, I am an RA in Davenport A, which is one of our second-year accommodations. In addition to being an RA, I also work with the Resident Student Association and am on the executive board for its sister organization, the National Residence Hall Honorary. So through those organizations, I get a really unique opportunity to speak with the residential body at large across Northeastern, across different residential communities. And through RSA, we really work to provide different programming opportunities and different advocacy opportunities to the residents, whether it be through Hall Council or through the various programs such as Husky Hunt or Pumpkin Palooza that we put on. In addition, through those organizations, we are a part of a regional body known as the Northeast Affiliate for College and University Residence Halls, shortened to NEACR. And if you look at the picture on the right of the screen, that was actually taken from the past NEACR conference this past year. I know right now the executive board is very busy getting ready for the one coming up this year in Geneseo, and it's something that's very much so on the forefront of our minds. In addition to that, last year I served as the president of the East Village, Hastings, and Midtown Hall Council. That is another one of our first-year accommodations, and that's where I lived. And East Village was the home of the Honors LLC community, where I mostly oversaw and did a lot of programming for. And my love for Residential Life sort of started there, and from that and the support of the Residential Life staff in my building, I ended up applying and was accepted to become a resident assistant this year. So the picture in the center on the top, that is myself and my staff. we consist of a staff of 18 resident assistants, 1 graduate assistant, and 1 area coordinator, and I love them all very dearly. And through that, I've really gotten an opportunity to speak with my residents and really get to know them on a level of support and being able to help them sort of overcome the challenges that they may take day to day and being able to help them in whatever endeavors may come their way. So I'm going to turn it on over to Jake so he can talk a little bit about his experience.
Yeah. Hey y'all, my name's Jake Wilson. I'm a third-year chemical engineering student here at Northeastern. This is my second year as an RA and my first year as a first-year RA. I am in Stetson West, one of our first-year residential halls, and one thing I'll do, as you might be able to see on my shirt, is I'm really on the forefront of the Hall Cup. Now, Hall Cup is really, really awesome. Emily described it a little bit earlier, but basically what I do is I get my residents hyped up and ready to go. So what you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen is our Hall Cup pep rally. It happens at the beginning of the year where, as you can see, the tons of different colored shirts, people from different residential complexes actually come together and cheer on their friends and people they live with in fun mini games. We have chants that we do. It's just a whole lot of fun. Start the year off right and really get a sense of spirit going throughout all of our residential complexes here at Northeastern. Now, one thing I also work with is our LLCs, as Emily mentioned earlier, Living Learning Communities. The 3 inside my building are from top right to the bottom left, the College of Science, Connections, and the College of Engineering. These are specific to different floors on our building, so the RAs on these floors are going to have relative information just based on whatever LLC they're in. Since I'm a chemical engineering major, I am a part of the College of Engineering LLC. I work with mostly College of Engineering students, and I really get to know them one-on-one. So we'll do things like Husky chats. My floor and I, every single Thursday, we have about 10 to 12 of us. We just go out and we play pickup basketball at Marino, which is our main gym here on campus. We'll do things like this upcoming week. It's midterm season over here at Northeastern. I'm sure you might already know that, but we're actually having a de-stress event, and and there'll be tie-dye, fondue, there'll be caramel apples, just a whole bunch of things that, you know, people get a chance to take their minds off of midterms, get ready for what's going on ahead, and really just relax, get to know a few people. So we're really excited for that opportunity coming up. And really, we're just there to service the people that need help, scheduling, programming, anything. We are there as a resource because that transition into college can be hard, and we want to make sure that's as easy as possible for them.
Great. So a little bit about what you can do as their parent and family members of the students here at Northeastern. I think the biggest thing that I always love to see is the encouragement, encouraging your student to reach out directly to the RA or the RD or AC of that that complex if there's any concerns. Obviously, I always love to talk to parents and families because you all hear a different side and hear the students trust you and know you so well, but I always love to be able to hear and speak to the student directly. So I think if you hear of any concerns or want to talk to a professional staff member, I always love to speak with parents and family members, but I always like to encourage you to have the students reach out to their RA or their RD and AC because that's our full-time job to help make their experience great. Also, I just encourage you to get to know your students, RD and AC, or their RA, even if it's via email or if you're here for the Family and Friends Weekend at the end of October. While the RDs and ACs might not work over the weekends, it's a great time if you're here on Friday, maybe emailing your respected AC or RD to see like, hey, are you going to be in the office? I'd love to meet you. I know some of the RAs might be around, but I think that's a really great way to see it as a partnership of we all want our students here to thrive and have the best experience possible. And getting to know a little bit more about your student and yourselves really helps to make that connection strong. Now, a little bit about how to contact Housing and Residential Life. The phone number for the main office is up on the screen. You can also email housing@northeastern.edu if there's any housing-specific concerns. The housing website is listed there, but I'd want to draw your attention to the building staff website. That has everybody who is working within the building staff, their picture, their phone number, their email address. So if there's anything specific to your student's community, I just like to direct your attention to that website because that will have all of that contact information. Because we can, that's a great way to start. If you're not sure who to contact, I do a lot of directing. A student or a parent or a family member might reach out to me and say, Emily, I have a question about financial aid, and then I can direct them specifically to that office if they're unsure of who to contact or who to reach out to.
Well, thank you, Emily and Robert and Jake. I know our parents enjoy hearing what is happening in the residence halls and how their students can get involved. So at this time, we are going to begin taking questions. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, that the Q&A pod is there. So if you want to begin taking questions, we will start typing your questions. We'll start taking some. So we have a couple questions about co-op, actually, and housing. How does the housing work if a student is on co-op? Do they stay in that? Can they stay in that apartment? What if the co-op is only 4 months and not like the whole time, like January through May?
Great question. So regarding co-op, if a student can definitely stay in their space on campus if they're on co-op, even if it's a 4-month term, we have our housing to go from fall semester, which is end of August through December, and then spring semester is January through end of April, early May for graduation. And then our summer semesters are split into 2. So we have summer 1 housing and summer 2 housing. So it's definitely possible if a student has a 4-month co-op that they can live on campus for those 4 months because we'll have another kind of move in and move out process in the middle of that summer semester. And that's something that a lot of our live-on staff and the RA staff is very familiar with, is that kind of how co-op impacts the living on campus experience. I think the biggest thing, though, is that there's a lot of transition happening with co-op. There's a lot of decisions being made whether to stay on campus, to go abroad, to take a co-op opportunity back at home where they might be living, or to try something here in Boston. So there's a lot of great opportunities. So we understand sometimes there's that last-minute decision to go abroad, or last-minute decision maybe to have a new opportunity. So that's something they can work with their residence director or their housing department to make any adjustments if necessary. But we are very well versed in how co-op can really impact their experience here, and we try to be as supportive as possible throughout.
So if a student takes a co-op from another state or goes to study abroad, do they go back to the same assignment or do they have to get relocated?
Good question. So essentially, if they do leave mid-semester, they would have to get a new assignment when they do return, either 6 months or 4 months later. But during our housing selection process, they would know what that future assignment would be pretty far in advance. So for example, for our fall housing assignment, we have our housing lottery and selection process during February. During the summer, and then probably about a month later, they have selection for summer 1 and summer 2. So they know where they would be going. Housing tries to do as few moves as possible, but we understand that in the fall semester when people leave, that bed space becomes available for the students who were on co-op for the fall semester to come back in.
So we have a couple questions about the lottery process and how that works. Maybe one of our students can answer that, but just so everyone knows, I believe the date hasn't been finalized yet, but in December we are going to be doing a webinar on Tuesday Talks on the lottery process and how it works. So parents, stay tuned for that because I know it's kind of a complicated process for parents to understand, but maybe one of our students can just talk a little bit about how that number is assigned.
Yeah, so going into my second year, I got lottery numbers, and basically I split it up with all of my friends. I chose to live with 5 other people. I lived in a 6-person apartment, and essentially we all got different lottery numbers. Now, you got to pick lottery numbers based on you got to pick your housing assignment based on your time slot of whatever your lottery number was, and whoever you're living with, whoever had the best lottery number out of that number, you would use their slot, and then you would fill in all 4, 5, 6 of your roommates, however many people you're deciding to live with. So we entered it. We got a time. I was with my roommate who had that lottery number at the time. He basically found an apartment that we all agreed upon in a group chat as soon as we saw the opening, accepted or clicked in, filled out the names, and we were good to go. We had that housing for the rest of that academic year in sophomore year, and it was a really, really nice place, 6-person apartment. We had an RA in our room, and it was just a great time to come together as a community, not only, having lived with them freshman year and seeing who they were then, but also getting to live with them in person later down the road.
Yeah, and as Susan mentioned, there will be maybe an opportunity for a specific housing conversation.
In December, we're going to be talking more about the lottery process and how that works. During that webinar, we'll also be talking about different deadlines and when to apply for spring housing. So if you have a question pertaining to that, we will be addressing that in December. So.
Great. And also early in the spring semester, typically January, Residential Life partners with housing to put on a few info sessions about the lottery and room selection process for our students on campus, where we actually partner with typically the director and assistant director over in our housing operations side, so the students know what that process is like and can kind of ask their questions as that gets closer.
So we have a question. Do RAs need to stay during the holiday breaks?
Currently, for the holiday breaks, I will say that there are different yes and no. So the only break, the winter break, is between the end of finals and New Year's. That's what we call intersession, where our RAs are kind of released from their contract. But some students and RAs choose to stay here on campus, whether they aren't traveling anywhere over the holidays, or they have co-op needs to stay on campus. But for Thanksgiving or like Easter, some other kind of bank holidays, RAs are expected to be here on campus.
Here's a question for Robert and Jake. We're midway through the semester right now, and like you said, it's a very stressful time for students. How can Res Life assist students during that time like this? We're doing this session on transition. Like, did you get involved right away? Did you, talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah. So when I came here originally, I was very gung-ho about getting as involved as I could, and I actually encountered the Resident Student Association at the orientation fair, and that's sort of how I got my grand start. But I think Res Life does a lot to ease those sort of mid-semester worries and doubts, especially around midterm season. I know a lot of RAs start putting on like de-stressor or mental health programs just to put that on people's radar. One thing that I found that Res Life does very effectively is sort of helping facilitate those discussions in the residence halls about mental health and being able to keep in mind who you are as the semester progresses. I also know that I tend to try and engage with my community a little bit more around this time just to be that extra face of support. So as an RA, we are compensated with a 19-meal plan, and I always offer to take my residents out to lunch and just get to sort of talk with them a little bit more one-on-one to sort of see what sort of struggles are they going through and how can I help support them in their time of need. Additionally, some of our student organizations, such as the Resident Student Association, do a lot of fun things around this time, such as Pumpkin Palooza, just as a way for people to kind of take a little break from studying, go out, hang out with their friends, and re-energize in the midst of all of it.
I was certainly not as gung-ho about getting involved as Robert was. I actually spent the first 3 weeks of my college experience watching about 8 seasons of Criminal Minds, and if you're wondering, wow, Jake, that's a lot of TV. Yes, it is. I really didn't get out much, and it took basically my mom telling me, like, when she asked, what'd you do today? I said, I watched Criminal Minds. She said, oh, again? And that's when it clicked. Oh, I should start doing some things. So that's when I really started getting involved in my community. I wasn't on hall council because I had actually missed those elections, but I worked very closely with them to do programs and things like that. I met people in my residence hall. I started giving tours on campus in the Husky Ambassadors organization. I really just got out and found what I liked about the university. So if you're worried about maybe your student isn't getting out right away, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, you have to let them catch their groove. If that means that they need to do a few things for the first few months and really find who they're going to be here in college, it's going to happen. That's kind of just how we have to kind of find ourselves here at college, and that was the big thing for me. My mom never said, you need to get out and do something, but when she said, maybe you should, she didn't even say maybe you should. She kind of just said, oh, cool, we're going to do this again. So that would just be my piece of advice. Like, they're going to find their way. Just make sure that they do it on their own time.
Did you feel more comfortable in January as a student coming back? I mean,
Yeah.
Absolutely. I felt much more comfortable not only in my community, but also I had picked up how I need to study for my college classes, how I should be in the classroom, what I should be doing to kind of advance my professional lens here at Northeastern. I felt much more comfortable there.
And I think one thing that was very interesting for me in January, as I was serving as hall council president at the time, is we had some students who had left to go do a study abroad opportunity in the spring, and their bed spaces were, and we had people who were abroad during their fall semester, their first year on the NUN program, come in. And so we almost had a brand new community to work with, and there were so many brand new ideas, and I could definitely tell that some of the residents were a little concerned because this was their first time on a college campus coming in, and a lot of the concerns that they had were, people have been here, and I don't know how I'll fit in. And so I think a lot of what residential life tries to do in the spring is making sure that it's sort of continuous and that you continue staying bonded with the people that you've met, but you're always welcoming the new people that come into your community because community is ever-changing.
I think a mistake some students make, and parents, because I see these emails a lot, is that they think their student has to be best friends with their roommate.
No.
If you can talk a little bit about that, like, we all want to get along and everything, but...
Yeah. I think it's very important to remember that being a good friend doesn't always mean you're going to be a great roommate, and vice versa. I know my sister chose to room with one of her best friends in high school, and it worked out very well for her when she went to college, but she always tells me, like, there was always that uncertainty with it. And my roommate, conversely, I had never met my roommate until I came to college, but we got along very well our freshman year, and we had very similar living styles that made it very easy to adapt. So I think it's okay if you're not always best friends with your roommate. It's more so about the cohabitation aspect and being able to come home and feel safe and secure in your own environment.
A lot of times I get questions from parents saying their students are afraid to speak up and say, they're uncomfortable with maybe something that's going on in their living situation. What advice would you give them? Because it is difficult to be 18 years old and be sharing a room and,
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And on that point, I think it's important to just kind of see what you're uncomfortable with and why you're uncomfortable with that. As a first-year RA, I deal with a lot of people that don't know who their roommates are. They don't know their style of living. They don't know how dirty someone is, what type of music someone listens to. Like, these are all kind of unknowns that you don't obviously know coming into the situation. So a lot of times people are thrown aback when something about someone else comes out. So just being comfortable with finding that out about yourself, and you don't necessarily have to immediately approach the person and accusatorially say, like, hey, you're doing this and it's really, really bothering me. RAs are there to help negotiate anything like that. If you feel like you don't know your RA that well, professional staff is always there. Their doors are 100% open, and that goes for the RAs too. Like, if you ever need any assistance with anything, you can go to them, and only the people that need to know will know. That will always be an assurance.
Emily, maybe you could talk a little bit about what's the right situation to go to an RA and then maybe go to an RD? When would you escalate it to the RD?
In all honesty, I don't think there is that the if or when. There's no specific button. I'm now as a professional staff member. One, I think is time of day. I think sometimes students might wait till the late at night or when there's office hours and go to the RA on duty. I would say the students who live in my building or the first year students who I would work with, sometimes they would forget that I'm in my office Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., that I have an open door. If my door is open, students can come in and really talk to me about anything. But I always encourage the student to talk to whoever they're most comfortable with. They might be more comfortable because they know Jake and have had multiple one-on-one Husky chats with them or have attended their programs, and they might not know much about me. But I think also sometimes if it is time sensitive, if they are really maybe uncomfortable to talk to a peer about that, if they don't feel safe, if they don't really know who to contact, that's when the professional staff member can assist. And I always say that that can happen via email to kind of introduce themselves or popping by our offices if it's during those business days. But I always encourage students to reach out via email. But I think it's like up to that, what they prefer and who they feel most comfortable speaking to. I always would like it to be the RA because they're the ones who are living on the floors, having those connections. But I also understand that sometimes if there's a problem or a concern that they have, going to a peer might be difficult, and that's why the RDs and ACs are there as well.
We have a question about campus housing and how long we guarantee it for students. Is it guaranteed for all 5 years?
I believe so. It's all 5 years. It's required to live on campus their first 2 years. So.
I know, Emily, this isn't your expertise,
That's okay.
but a few parents are asking,
Yeah.
what if there's something wrong in one of the residence halls, if the student has no heat or something electrical?
Oh, yeah.
Process for that?
Okay, well, if there's facilities concerns, we do have a work request. Our facilities department worked really quickly to connect with the student's concern. There's instructions on how to do that, I believe, with the student's portal. If there is a concern that your student has, I would say they can reach out to their RA or their RD or AC of that building to let us know, because we can work on the back channels to either expedite something, but to let us know what's also going on. But we do have like a specific facilities department that works directly with student concerns that your student can put requests in. They can either call or submit it online through the work request website that students have access to.
And they do respond pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah.
So quick.
I've done it and they come in 10 minutes, so.
So
yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Someone's asking us, how often do RAs hold hall events or get-togethers?
So I think it really varies community by community. I know this year the department has taken a bit of an approach to customize the way that we do programming and event planning per community, because what works in Jake's first-year community may not necessarily work in my second-year community. And so it really does depend. I know within our staff, we have an expectation that we're going to hold up to 2 social programs as well as what we call a duty program. So during those open office hours during the evening from 7 to 11 when we're on duty, every RA sort of has the expectation to be able to cater food from the budget and just have a bunch of residents in the general common room to sort of talk to them and be able to engage with them while on duty. But it really does vary. However, we always like to make sure that even if we're not necessarily doing an event for our specific community, we try and plug events that are going out to other communities. And so one way we do that is in my community we do a biweekly newsletter, and in that newsletter we'll throw in programs that other RAs are doing in the complex, or just events that are going around on campus that we might think our residents might be interested in. So I know that mine will be going out at the end of the week, and I am very excited to be able to bring all these opportunities to my residents.
Yeah. Like Robert said, it's very different community to community. It just depends on what your community needs. In Stetson West, we definitely do weekly events in the sense that every Wednesday night we have a study night where we bring in food as well as tutors from classes that a lot of our students are taking, especially around midterm season. And the grind is on, so if they ever need any kind of questions or anything related to tutors, those people will be there always. Saturday nights, we also have game night every single night. We just bring out tons of board games. Once again, lots of free food. People can just come, play some board games, get to know other people around the hall. And RAs also pretty much throw, I'd say, weekly events. We have one RA who every week sits down and watches the new episode of Grey's Anatomy and does an analytical review of the science that was in there. And it's a whole bunch of fun. At least 20 to 30 residents go every single week. And it's a really great thing to see. And then a very larger program scale, I'd say typically once a week, depending on who's programming that week and such.
So a couple of questions about, people are asking about, do we help students find housing when they go study abroad or into another state?
Yeah, our off-campus housing office, as well as our study abroad office and co-op connections, work directly with our students who are looking to go abroad or looking to take that co-op. So there is actually a couple of offices specific to help those students with their questions or concerns, whether that's finding an off-campus apartment here in Boston and navigating how to sign a lease, or what neighborhoods or what housing that students have used previously. But also we understand that one of the most biggest stressors when you are looking to travel is where to live. So our co-op connections and study abroad office do a really good job to connect those students with those resources.
And we are going to be offering some of our Tuesday talks with some of the subjects that we've discussed here tonight. One of them, we did one just recently, the study abroad, and that is listed on our website. You can actually listen to that if you have not joined it in the past. And then one of our other ones coming up is off-campus living, and University Health and Counseling was going to be hosting one. So the next couple months we're going to be posting them shortly, the different webinars that will be available. We do have a question about health insurance, and I am going to ask that parent if they could email me at parents@northeastern.edu, and I will forward that message to our health representative. I do want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you, Emily, Jake, and Robert for taking time out of your schedule. I do want to mention that at the very end, when I close down the presentation, you will see a brief survey. If you wouldn't mind taking a few minutes to provide us with feedback on how the webinar went, we are always looking for suggestions on future topics, so please feel free to add any topics that you would like us to cover. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar.